make sure that we get things going this morning because the election was this past Tuesday. The pandemic today is the number one story. The black scene is the story of our glory. You choose to take the vaccine.
WBPG-LP 102.9 FM radio. We are located at 670 Washington Street in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Our zip code is 02124. Our phone number is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. The views and opinions expressed by the following paid program are those of the program producers, and they do not reflect the views and opinion of Global Ministries Christian Church, its staff, or management.
must give the narrative. It is imperative that the truth about us, we give. No more trying to get ratings with the hating. No more fake news. Now we can choose Boston Black News.
That's Extra, Extra, Read All About It. That's a song that was commissioned by Ron Bell to Larry Wu, and we owe Larry Wu all the credit, all the adulation, all the love and support that he deserves. May God bless his life, his legacy, and as you know, he transitioned a number of years ago, so he's no longer with us on this earth. But we appreciate all that he did, all that he represented, and he worked so diligently with Ron Bell, so we thank God for him. This morning, we're looking at the election that's coming up on the state primary. It's the Tuesday, September 3rd. Starting at 7 a.m. Doors open for you to be able to walk in and to vote. And so we're looking forward to spending this hour talking about the election. Polling hours, 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. It's the state primary, September 3rd. State primary, September 3rd. Ron Bell is doing his part. Minister Priscilla is doing her part. Pastor Franklin Hobbs is doing his part. And my part is to wake you up and let you know that we have an election. Things are 100% different in how the church does this versus how the church did it years ago. Years ago, Dan Janey and I would be working together, would be on the air, pumping the election, talking to people about the upcoming state primary. Whether you be a Democrat, a Republican, I am neither. I have chosen to not have an affiliation as a Democratic or Republican. I am an independent, which means I can decide who I want to vote for. I can decide on the person that I want to vote for. I don't have to go with the person that the Democratic Party or Republican Party chooses. As an independent, I make my choice earlier. So Tuesday, September 3rd, that's this coming Tuesday, right after Labor Day. Tuesday, September 3rd is the state primary. I'm going to keep saying it. Tuesday, September 3rd. If this radio station is going to do anything, it's going to inform, alert, push people to the polls, and we really need folk in the churches to be involved in the electoral process. We need you to go out and vote. If you have not registered to vote, you cannot vote in the state primary on September 3rd, but you will have another opportunity to register to vote for the November 5th state election, which includes the president and vice president, U.S. senator, U.S. representatives, governors, council, state senator, state rep, register of deeds, clerk of courts, commissions, county commissioners, and any additional local officers. Voter registration deadline for the November election is, as I'm reading it, October 26th.
Voter registration deadline is October 26th. The deadline for voting by mail is October 29th. And again, the polling hours is 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Now, I've already voted in the state primary because I chose to vote for my candidates by mail. My wife did the same thing, so we will not be going to the polls because we asked for a ballot. They sent the ballot to my house. I filled it out, black circles, fill in the oval. We did it, put it back in the mail, and so the city knows who I and my wife voted for the state primary. Now, we have a senator in Congress. We have representatives in Congress. We have the senator in the general court. We have representatives in the general court. We have the clerk of Supreme Court. We'll talk about that in a moment. We have the clerk of the Superior Court. We have the Register of Deeds and the Register of Probate. There are a number of state positions that you need to think about, and the Governor's Council is also up. And so right now I want us to take a look at the Senate and Congress. Elizabeth Warren is running. She has someone that is opposing her, but we'll get to that also in a few moments. Are you a registered voter? That's my question. Are you a registered voter? Have you been voting in the elections? Have you made up your mind who you would like to vote for? Have you done the homework? Have you gone on the internet? Have you read the newspapers? Have you read a book? Have you gone to the web pages of the various candidates? And I know that could be daunting to try to figure out who all these people are who are running for office. I know that. But we still have to do it. We still have to do it. Because if not, we're not going to be voting for candidates. And when you are seeking help at the federal, state, or city level, they know the people that you're asking for the help in the state, in the city, they know whether or not you have voted. And I want you to know that not everybody does this. There are some candidates that say, even if you did not vote for me, I am still going to help you with your concern. I'm going to say it again. There are some candidates who would shut you off and say, they're not dealing with you. They're not going to deal with you at all because you do not vote. If you do not vote, you cannot threaten their position at all if you do not vote. And so there's some elected officials who just, quite frankly, they do not care about you. As my mother would say, they do not care about you at all. Early voting in Boston is up. I really enjoyed voting by mail. I really enjoyed having my ballot come to me. I filled out the ballot. I read who the people were running, who they were, studied them. I've spoken to some of them, and we voted by mail. But early voting for the state primary on September 3rd will take place from Saturday, August 24th through Friday, August 30th. So this is the last day. I'm looking at my watch. This is the last day that you can vote, what we call early voting. You go to one of the places that's been designated for early voting. What is early voting? For the state primaries on Tuesday, September 3rd, early voting takes place in the city of Boston from Saturday, August 24th through Friday, August 30th. Unlike traditional polling, You don't have to vote at your assigned polling location. You vote at the location that is the most convenient for you, and all early voting locations are accessible to voters with disabilities. Early locations will also have auto mark machines for voters who need help making their ballots. So, today, I'm glad I'm doing this broadcast today. Today is the last day that you can actually do what they call early voting. If you go online, you'll be able to see the early voting map, and you'll be able to see the early voting locations by date. So, for example, Saturday, August 24th, and Sunday, August 25th, designated places that you can go. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, designated places that you can go. Today is the last day for early voting. So the place that you can go today is City Hall Haymarket Room. The City Hall Haymarket Room at 1 City Hall Plaza in Boston. And after that, you'll next, if you chose not to vote by mail, if you've chosen not to do the early voting, and your only option is to go to the polls on September 3rd and vote with everybody else. But this is important. Voting, exercising your right to vote. There's a generation of young people who actually have not really been taught about the history of voting in the United States. A number of them do not know that black people were not allowed to vote. So people like myself, a boomer, who remembers all of that and remembers hearing stories from people who are older than I am, we feel the need and necessity to vote. There's an urgency because there was a time and period where you would put your life on the line to go to the polls to vote, to let white folk know that you could read, that you were intelligent. You couldn't do that years ago. And if you did it, you paid there was a consequence for doing it. Our young people are disconnected from that because many of our young people do not know our history. They do not know their own history. It's not just their fault. It's the fault of a school system who's been denying us the right to read books that will talk about our history, to bring people in who look like us to talk about our history, to create a curriculum that has information that's relevant for us to understand who we are, how we came to this country, and the impact of voting, not having the capacity or permission to vote has hurt us. In the churches used to motivate people to vote. At my church, 12th Baptist Church, the church that I grew up in, or one of the churches I grew up in, the pastor, Reverend Michael Haynes, was a state representative. So not only did he educate his congregation about voting, he was a state rep. He was in an elected position. And so he allowed us to talk to the congregation about voting by mail, early voting, how to apply to become a poll worker if you want to work at the poll. So we had all that information. And when I came to this church, Dan Janey and I continued to motivate the congregation to vote. But then things started to change over the past 15 years where people were relocating from Boston, and they were relocating to the South Shore and some to the North Shore and some out west. People were leaving the state for good. And so we found our churches filled with men and women who did not live in the city of Boston. It was difficult for us then. For example, Ron Bell puts out an election pamphlet, and it's full of information the candidates, their positions, the districts where they're voting from, information about them. He has put that out. It's a election guide. That's what he calls it. It's an election guide. I have quite a few here at the church that we give out to people. It's making Boston's government work for you. And I have one of the guides that talks about a neighborhood guide for the residents of Bowdoin and Geneva. So he has these guides, but these guides are focused on Boston. And when you have a church that's filled with people who actually come from the South Shore, the North Shore, or out in Framingham, those guides aren't going to help you because you can't vote here in Boston. And so we need to up our game. I talked to some of the members of the church who actually lived in Randolph and Stoughton and Brockton. I talked with them, and when they were in Boston, they were registered voters. They were engaged. But once they moved to the South Shore, the North Shore, or out west, once they moved to those cities and towns, they were not engaged in the electoral process. They stopped voting for the local candidates because they didn't know who they were. And in some of these cities and towns up north, going up north, or going to the southern part of New England, you have a predominance of white candidates who are running for office. I'm sure there were black candidates who were gearing up to do it, but you have a lot of white folk, and when you go to the meetings, you're outnumbered. When you were going to meetings, election meetings here in Boston, the white community was outnumbered. But when you go to the South Shore, the North Shore, out west, in some districts, you find yourself in a minority numerically. So September 3rd, state primaries. Registered. I hope you are a registered voter. I hope you took that seriously. I hope you filled out all of the forms that you were supposed to fill out. I hope that you're not going to squander and that you're not going to waste this election by sitting it out. September 3rd. What day is that? It's this coming Tuesday, right after Labor Day. September 3rd is the election. U.S. senators, U.S. representatives, governor's council, state senators, state representatives, register of deeds, clerk of court, county commissioners, they are all up and ready to go. Now, one of the races that a lot of people are looking at is the clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court. I'm going to say it again. The clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court. And the way the ballot has been written, there are two people running on a Democratic side. One is Allison Cartwright, who is a lawyer, a mom, a mentor. She lives in Hyde Park, and she's a community leader. For those of you who live in Boston, you live in Chelsea, you live in Revere, you live in Winthrop, you can vote for the clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court. The other person who's running for office, number 2 on the ballot, is Erin Murphy. Erin Murphy is a city councilor at large. Erin Murphy is a city councilor at large. So on a Democratic ticket, Allison Cartwright and Erin Murphy are both running for the clerk of the Supreme Court. That is an important, very important position. As many of you know, I used to be a clerk of court at the Boston Juvenile Court for 18 years, I believe it was, that I worked there before I came to Global Ministries and worked here for 31 years. It was an important position. I didn't want to give it up, but I knew that I couldn't continue to work as a clerk magistrate and also work as a pastor full time. I had to give one of those up, and I made the decision to give up the clerk of court position. So I know how important a position it is. Allison Cartwright, Erin Murphy are going head to head. Now, I have one of the pamphlets in my hand. I don't have anything from Erin Murphy. She never asked to be interviewed on our station. Allison Cartwright did, so she left some of her information. And Allison is being endorsed by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Mayor Michelle Wu, Attorney General Andrea Campbell, State Senator Lydia Edwards, House Majority Leader Michael Moran, State Senator William Brownsburger, State Senator Liz Miranda, State Rep Russell Holmes, State Rep Sam Botano, a number of state reps, a number of city councilors. I'm not going to read them all because that's all I'll do is end up reading. She has a number of the city councilors who are supporting her. She has Revere city councilors, Winthrop town councilors. She has Chelsea town councilors. She has state senators. She has the endorsement of the Boston Teachers Union. She has the United Auto Workers. She has the Progressives in Mass, in West Roxbury, and Rosendale. She has the Progressives in Jamaica Plain, and she has the Boston Ward Forum, Ward number 4 group. She has the Ward 5 group, Ward 4. She has the Boston Ward 10. She has the Ward 11. These are all Democrats. The Ward 15 and Ward 19. That is very impressive, and she was interviewed here on Boston Praise Radio and TV, and when she came in with a new card with additional endorsements that have increased since she gave us the last card. So you have to decide, are you voting for Allison Cartwright, or are you voting for Erin Murphy? We know Erin Murphy very well. She's been at our church on a number of occasions. She's been on this radio station as an at-large city councilor. She has talked with myself. She has talked to Franklin Hobbs. She has talked to a number of us. We have been very impressed with her. She has responded to our calls. She has responded to some of the needs that our church had. So you have two candidates, Allison Cartwright, who knows this radio station, Erin Murphy, who knows this radio station and this church. And they both have been here. They both have been behind these microphones. But you need to do due diligence. You need to study and find out who these candidates are. Find out, if you missed their broadcast, find out what they're promising to do. Find out what they're promising to do. Now, Allison Cartwright is not, this is her first time running for office, but Erin Murphy has a political record. You can do a study, go to City Hall, go online, look at the election department, pull up Boston City Councilors, see what committee she's on, do diligent research on the internet, find out what city ordinances she's proposed or had passed, read some of the newspaper stories about Erin Murphy and Allison Cartwright, and you will glean an insight as to who they are and what they have to offer us. When is the election, the state primary? It's September 3rd. State primary is September 3rd. It is a statewide election. Office on the ballot, the offices on my ballot. I have the Democratic ballot. I don't have the Republican. I'm going to see if I can find it here. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're going to continue with giving you information about the candidates who are running for office and hoping that you will participate.
The
From our perspective, we must give the narrative. It is imperative that the truth about us, we give. No more trying to get ratings with the hating. No more fake news. Now we can choose Boston Black News.
That's extra. Read all about it. Pastor Bruce Wall here, live in the studio, and looking up some of the information that I think we needed to present to you. One of the races that people are looking at, they're looking at the clerk of court race. There are two significant races, the clerk of court race, and they're looking at Allison Cartwright and Erin Murphy. There's no Republican candidate. They are the two Democratic candidates that are running for office. There's no Republican candidate. Just looked it up. I don't see any. So when you go to vote, you're voting for a Democratic candidate, Allison Cartwright and Erin Murphy. We know both of them. We will not tell you who to vote for. We are not leaning in any direction. We're presenting the facts and the information and hoping that you are going to vote on election day. We want to see you involved. My phone number is 617-283-9561. 617-283-9561. Ron Bell is not here today. He has a day off, but he will be back on next Friday. I'm holding down the fort for him. I hope that you are tuned in. Do you want to give me a call and tell me who you're voting for with regards to the clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court race? Allison Cartwright or Erin Murphy? 617-283-9561, 617-283-9561. Today is the 30th of August. It's 8:41 a.m. in the morning. I'm live in the studio, and I'd like to know who you're voting for and why. The clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court, one of the most important positions that a person can have. And Allison Cartwright and Erin Murphy are fighting to gain the seat, to win the seat. Now, if Erin Murphy loses this race, she's still going to be a city councilor because there's no city race. So it's not like she's giving up her city councilor position if she loses. Allison Cartwright is a public defender, and so I believe she'll still have her position if she loses this race. So they're not risking a whole lot. They're not risking a whole lot if either of them loses the race. Allison Cartwright, Erin Murphy, two people who are running for the clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court. Now, I'm a little frustrated that we are not ready in any of the churches. I have not heard any pastor or any church leader talk about the race to their congregation or passed out literature to cover their entire congregation. There may be some pastors who have done it, but I do not know who they are. That would be a voluminous to have to fill out a sheet of paper with all of the people running for office in the state of Massachusetts, in the cities and towns. You couldn't do it. It's just too many. And Stoughton now has a whole lot of black folk. We know Brockton has a lot of black folk. Hingham, I'm sure, has some black folk. There are people in these cities and towns that we don't even know who's living in these cities and towns. Before, when black people came from the South and they came to a big city, they would find out where black people live, and that's where they would go. And in many instances, they were the poorer neighborhoods. But that's not happening anymore. Black folk are looking at the property and making a decision whether or not they can afford the property, and they do not care whether or not white folk or black folk or Asian folk or European folk or German folk. They don't care who's living around them, or maybe they care, but they're not saying I have to be in a black community. I might say I want to be in an integrated community, but years ago, my wife and I, when we were choosing where we were going to live, I said to her I wanted to stay in Boston because I wanted to vote in Boston. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking if I ever ran for office, if I ever made that decision with the support of my family, I wanted to run for a position in Boston. But people are not looking at it that way. Some of our most effective leaders, some of our more effective black leaders in this city do not live in Boston. They don't. They live outside of Boston, but they come into the city to make a contribution. Now, let me go to another race that we need to take a look at, and it is the Governor's Council. The Governor's Council is an important position because the Governor's Council representatives, they determine who will be released from prison. They can make that decision, and they make decisions as to what judges they're going to confirm. And so I was thinking that I was going to take a run for the councilor's position. But I made a decision with the support of my wife that that's not something that I will do. I'm not going to run for the Governor's Council. But the people who are running is Christopher Iannella, and he's been in that position for well over 30 plus years. Christopher Iannella, a political name that's known in the city of Boston. Stacey Borden is running. She's a black woman. She's running for that position. She has been an effective leader in the city of Boston. She works with many different people, but one of the large groups that she works with is women who have been incarcerated and who have been released. She works, I'm sure, with those who are in prison and those who have been released. Then Ronald Primo is also running. So there are 3 people running for that position. I couldn't find any Republicans running for that position. So 3 Democrats are running for that position. Governor's Council, it's the 4th District Council. There are other Governor's Council races in other districts, but the one that I'm focusing on is the one that I could vote for, and that's I can vote for either Christopher Iannella, Stacey Borden, or Ronald Primo. Have you made your decision as to who you are going to vote for? I've already voted. I voted by mail. I already gave my vote. I'm not going to share who it is, but I did vote for the Governor's Council candidate. I did vote for the clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court. I did vote for that individual. That person made my decision, and I'm moving on, and I'm not going to tell you who I voted for. But you can call me at 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You can call me and tell me live on the air who you voted for. I can't tell you who I voted for, but you can tell me who you voted for. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. This election is important because we're voting in November for the President of the United States, November 5th. Statewide race, national race, people around the world looking at the president's race. We will be voting for president and vice president in November 5th. The state elections this coming Tuesday is the primary. The president and vice president will not be on the ballot. Just the U.S. senators, U.S. reps, governor's council, state senator, state reps, register of deeds, clerk of court, county commissioners in certain counties only, and there'll be some additional local officers in certain towns and cities and towns. That's what I'm saying. I'm a pastor of a church in Dorchester. I do not know the hundreds of people who are running for office in the cities and towns in Massachusetts. We can't, as a Dorchester pastor, I cannot cover every single candidate who's running for office in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's just too many. Now, running on for senator in Congress on the Democratic side is Elizabeth Warren. Running for representative in Congress is Ayanna Pressley. Running on the Democratic side, senator in Norfolk and Suffolk districts is Michael Rush. Running for representative in the general court as a Democratic candidate is Rob Consalvo. He has no opposition. On the Democratic side, Michael Rush has no opposition on the Democratic side. Ayanna Pressley has no opposition on the Democratic side. Elizabeth Warren has no opposition on the Democratic side. Those are the only Democrats that are running. We have the Register of Deeds, Stephen Murphy. He's running. He's an incumbent. He has no opposition, Democratic opposition. And Register of Probate, Stephanie Everett has no opposition, no Democratic opposition, so they're going to get a virtually free ride on the Democratic side. November 5th is the state election. November 5th is the state election. Electors, that is not just the state election, that's the final election. So we have September 3rd. The primary. November 5th, the state election. September 3rd, the state primary. November 5th, the state election. We need to be voting on September 3rd. We need to be voting on November 5th. You need to be voting in both elections. The primary, when you send people to the state election, and you need to be running in the state election. Both. If you haven't done your homework, why not? There are people who have been intentional about not voting. They said they're just not committed to the process. They don't trust the process. They don't trust any of the candidates, people who are running for office. They say that elections, politicians, they're dirty. They have no honor. We do not respect them. And you may feel that way, but you know what? If you choose not to vote for a candidate, what you're doing is that you are ultimately hurting yourself and your family. What would be wrong with a person going to all the people, all their neighbors and friends, and saying, here's a list of the candidates who are running for office. Let's all vote together for this candidate. What's wrong with doing that? So it's just not your one vote. But as you know, in our Boston City Council a number of years ago, we had a city council race, where a candidate won the race by one vote. So do not minimize yourself by saying that your one vote doesn't count, because it does. Your one vote can determine a person, whether or not a person is going to sit in office or whether they are going to take their flyers in their hat and go home. You can make that decision. And who's to say that my one vote for that candidate, because I voted for that candidate, Julia Mejia, city councilor, who's to say that my one vote was not the one that helped her to win the race? So every vote counts. Every vote counts. There's the September 3rd state primary, November 5th state election. Who will you be voting for? I've made up my mind. I voted by mail. You could have voted by mail. You could have early voting. The last day for early voting is, I believe, on Saturday. I'm going to see if I can find the early voting. Early voting in Boston. I just found it. See if I can bring it up. Early voting in Boston. Early voting for the state primary on September 3rd will take place from Saturday, August 24th through Friday, August 30th. So today happens to be the day for early voting. If you had decided that you didn't want to stand in line with a whole lot of people for the final election on September 3rd, you could have gone and voted early. Today's the final day for you to do that. So I'm hoping that you will do that. Today is the final day for you to vote. And there are a number of early voting sites for the state primary, including Boston City Hall. If you plan to vote early, you have until 5 p.m. on Friday, August 3rd. That's going to be it. I'm going to click on this information regarding Friday, and then our broadcast will be over. Today, from starting at 9 o'clock until 5 p.m. Final day for early voting. Say it again. Final day for early voting is today, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's at the City Hall, Haymarket Room, 1 City Hall Plaza, Boston, Mass. It's at City Hall, the Haymarket Room, 1 City Hall Plaza, Boston, Mass. So I hope you listen. You were listening. I hope that maybe you were writing something down. I hope that you are going to participate in the political process. I hope that you are going to make your vote count. My name is Bruce Wall. You've been listening to Boston Black News. I've been sitting in for my good friend Ron Bell, who is on a day off, and you'll be hearing from Ron Bell